In the tapestry of life, where every thread holds a story, America in black and white emerges as a haven for the voices echoing through the heart of our communities. In this podcast, we wade through the rivers of our collective experiences, celebrating the vibrant hues of change brought forth by the whispers of hope and the roars of action. It's more than just a conversation. It's a journey into the heart of our society, illuminated by the light of those daring to dream and do. Join us, and let your voice be the melody that guides us toward a dawn where every color finds its place in the masterpiece of our shared destiny. Together, let's paint a future brimming with the positives that dwell in our minds and the actions that shape our world.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of America in Black and White. I'm your host, Charles King. Before we introduce our guests, we're going to do a Black History reflection about Madam C.J. Walker. Madam C.J. Walker's life is a masterclass in reinvention, resilience, and radical self-determination. Born Sarah Breedlove in 1867 to formerly enslaved parents, she transformed her pain, her poverty, and her challenges into a pathway that would change the economic landscape for Black women across America. She became the first self-made woman millionaire in U.S. history, not simply because she sold hair products, but because she built an infrastructure, a national network of training schools, sales agents, and economic opportunities that empower thousands of Black women to earn, lead, and build generational wealth. Madam C.J. Walker understood something profound. When you teach a woman to build, you teach a community to rise. Her legacy lives in every Black woman who leads with purpose, every educator who uplifts others, every entrepreneur who builds from the ground up, and every visionary who refuses to let circumstances define destiny. Tonight's guest, Dr. Lashawnte McCray-Sarvis, stands firmly in that lineage, a modern embodiment of Walker's spirit of innovation, empowerment, and unstoppable determination. Now, let me introduce you guys to our guest tonight. Welcome back to another episode, another powerful episode of American Black and White, where we explore the stories, the brilliance, and the lived experiences that shape our nation through the lens of truth, culture, and unapologetic Black excellence. Tonight, we are honored to sit with a woman whose journey is nothing short of extraordinary, a woman who turned her adversity into achievement, purpose into profession, and leadership into legacy. Dr. Lashawnte McCray-Sarvis is not just an educator, she is an architect of possibility, not just a consultant, but a builder of systems that restore, empower, and transform. Not just an author, but a storyteller who writes from the soul, and not just a podcaster, but a voice guiding educators toward classrooms rooted in belonging, accountability, and effectiveness. Her life is a testament to what happens when resilience meets vision, when purpose meets preparation, and when a Black woman decides that her story will not be defined by circumstance, but by calling. Tonight, we dive into her journey, her work, her wisdom, and her impact. This is a conversation you don't want to miss. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Lashawnte Sarvis. And I hope I said your name right.
Lashawnte.
Lashawnte. Okay, I'm sorry.
You are fine. You are fine.
Welcome back to the show.
Thank you for having me back, and thank you for all those warm words. I love what you said, architect of possibility. Now I need my crown to put on right now because I feel so just queen-like.
Well, that you are, and since the last time I see that you've steadily added to the things that you're doing. That's definitely giving up those possibilities and opportunities.
Yes, I
So is there anything you'd like to say to the audience before we get into the show?
Well, just wanted to just thank everyone for listening, and truly, I hope that you will find some jewels of information that will help you to be motivated and inspired to continue in your path and whatever you may do, because definitely you want to always have that mindset of no matter what comes before you, you can achieve, you can be whatever you want to be, and you just have to keep going and pushing even when it seems like you have so many obstacles ahead of you. Just know that you've got it in you. You've just got to keep that fuel, as my pastor said this past Sunday. You've got to put some log in that fire.
I like that. Keep it going. Um, yeah, let's get into the show here, where I like for people to get the opportunity of know who you were before you became this extraordinary individual that you are today. Can you tell us, when you reflect on your journey from teen mother to doctoral scholar, what stands out as your defining moment?
Whew, I had so many defining moments on the way, but I think the most defining moment was when I graduated from high school, because even though I was, in the top 10% of my class, and even though I was, National Honor Society, Beta Club, and all those different things, the there were still those who did not think that I would go on to college because I became a teen mom. Did not do it on purpose, of course. Did not do it on purpose, but being able to walk across that stage and being able to complete that part of the journey, because that in itself was still, something that possibly couldn't have happened. I've seen, students that I have taught that whenever they became pregnant, they didn't continue on, you know, some classmates, but just that was the turning point, is walking across that stage, getting my high school diploma, and and then going on to college, because there were the naysayers, and even, my family thought it would be difficult, and by no means was it an easy journey, but I had to continue on because I had my children to provide for, and I wanted to continue my journey in what I had set before myself as a little girl, that I was going to college, and I was going by any means necessary. And even though my mom could not help me financially, I was going, and I was going to find a way. And so, just again, being persistent, and just knowing that I had to continue on. I couldn't stop, and I had to go and do what I needed to do because I was going to get my blessing.
Well, as I go back and I think about, again, as I was reading your bio and just looking at some of the things that you had written in there,
Hmm.
and when I think about society in general, you know, for whatever the bias and the ugliness when it comes to young girls and women, I know that that had to be a lot in order for you to continue your resilience and pursue those things that were important to you. What
It
was some of the things that actually came to you that said you're gonna make sure that this happens?
so to answer that part of that question, was it, were there things coming to me? Was it difficult? I had a lot of ugly things that came to me, and just to share one, um, I had one of my teachers. She came to me, and this was right before I went out on homebound, because this was my senior year, and so right before I went out on homebound to have my daughter, my second child, she said to me, um, "Didn't you know what was going to happen?" And I'm thinking to myself, okay, yeah, I did know what was going to happen. I knew what the possibilities were, but she wasn't encouraging to me at all. She wasn't. She just wanted to get into my business per se, and I, loved her as a teacher. But in that moment, I felt so small. I felt like I was nothing for just a brief moment. And I went home and I had to gather myself because there were some days I went home in which I was in tears because, again, senior year, there's some things I could not do that I wanted to do. But just hearing some of the comments and remarks from people that I would have thought would have been supportive, and I guess they looked at me and said, "Oh, well, you had one child, but and you turned around and you did it again," and it wasn't as if this was all on purpose. And so I almost felt like people were saying, you're getting what you asked for. And I did not feel supported by certain individuals, but those that were with me, my mom, even though one of the stories I tell in my the book that I came out with last year, my name is Lashawnte, from the womb to the woman. I talk about how I didn't tell my mom about my first pregnancy because I thought she was going to literally kill me, and that was always in my mind. If I did something wrong, oh, my mom was definitely a disciplinarian, but I was like, my mom's going to kill me. She's going to kill me. She's going to kill me. So I didn't tell her about it. But baby number 2, she knew. I wasn't playing those games again because she showed me that she loved me and she wanted to be there and to support me. But when you came through it, I'm Gen X. When you came through that generation, if you had a healthy fear of your parents, and there's nothing wrong with a healthy fear, but that healthy fear also kept me from being transparent with her, with my first child. But my mom and my grandmother, they were my biggest supporters. They were the ones that once I set my mind and I said, this is what I'm going to do, they were there with me every step of the way, encouraging me. My sister, encouraging me. My brother, they were encouraging me. So I had people that were there for me, and my family was my biggest set of supporters in my life at that time.
We got a comment here in the chat. I'll put it on the screen for you.
Okay.
So proud you are sharing your
I'm
story. You're inspiring. I'm sorry.
I said I was nervous to see what the comment may be.
Oh. Oh.
Yeah. So I say I'm nervous because I always share when I shared when I came on your show last year, and I shared again this time around. And so of course I had some individuals that were messing with me before the show and said make me proud and give a shout out to me and so forth. I'm like, oh my God, here we go. So the comment is from this is my principal. He says, so thank you. I appreciate you being on tonight. So he's been one of my biggest supporters. Anytime that he's been on my podcast. He's just been one of my biggest supporters, and that's always great to have a supervisor who is going to be in your corner no matter what you're doing. So I do appreciate it.
So, what were some of the early messages you received about education, success, or leadership growing up?
So, when I began, I had a professor who talked about Black excellence, and she talked about having more people in the classroom who looked like us. And she was just so awesome. She was an awesome woman. And she was my education 101 professor. And so in talking about excellence, she talked about making sure that it's more than just knowing the content. You also have to show that you have concern and compassion for students. And so what she shared is something that has been a part of my teaching and my education journey since I've been in, because children need to know that you genuinely care about them, and that beyond just teaching the math and the reading and history, they want to know that you care and you're not just there drawing a paycheck. Now we know that's why we're in education, as in any type of job, in marketing, you're CEO of a company, you know, we all have to make a living in order to support ourselves. But when it comes down to education excellence, you need to know, the students need to know that you care about them, because then when they know you care, then the content is going to come. They're going to understand. They're going to relate to the content, because they're going to want to do better, because they know they want to make you proud as well.
Mhm.
So it's all about relationship building. And so education excellence, that was one of the first things that I received as far as in college. Whenever I was in high school, I was in teacher cadet, and my teacher, she also had taught me English as well, and she was an awesome teacher, and she showed that same spirit of compassion and concern. She went beyond. She was one of the teachers that, even though she didn't teach me my senior year, um, she did reach out to me and made sure that I was doing well when I was out on homebound. So just having those role models of excellence in education helped me to be an excellent educator as well.
You know, so as you think about that, do you ever, you know, in your classes or with your students, what are you pouring into them to continue that legacy of Black excellence?
I let them see who I am, because I work in different diverse settings. I've worked in Title I schools in which the majority of the students, they looked like us, and it's a different. So even in those settings, in the Title I setting, and then I'm currently in a CTE setting, I try to be the same every place I go, and that is showing them this is what modeling what Black excellence looks like. And
Mhm.
so when I'm talking with students, whether I know them from seeing them at the middle school level, or like now being at the career center, I get to see what I call my giblets. They have come through. So I had them in sixth grade on up, and now I get a chance to see them in high school in a career setting. And so just being able to have continue those connections with them, and talking with them when they come in through metal detector in the mornings, and or if I see them and going around to the classrooms, and just knowing that they have someone that's in their corner, and that I am there to be a support to them in their journey as they're trying to get through high school. I've also mentored students, whether it's formally or informally. And since my principal is on, there have been, certain students in which I've kind of taken on, because I could tell that they needed someone. I've also I've been assigned educators to be their mentors, and some that come unassigned. But in the journey, I am constantly showing the students that they have someone that is there, that if they need me, whether it's in an administrative role, or if it's in I need some advice on what school. I'm looking at these three schools to go to after high school, but just knowing that they can come to me. I even have a drawer full of safety pins and bobby pins if the girls need that, because it seemed at the middle school level, I use that a lot, even,
Yes.
you know, ponytail holders and things of that nature. But just having someone that's going to be there. Now, they're still going to, they get in trouble. They know they've got to, they got to pay the piper. If they got to come to me, but they know that they're going to be respected and have the opportunity to tell their side of, whatever happened.
Oh, you mentioned something that caught my attention. You said now that you're now working in CTE. Can
Yes.
you tell us, tell the audience about CTE, how it's working with the school that you're at now, and do you want to continue in that area?
Well, CTE is exciting. This is like the cherry on top of the pie for me, because I've had the opportunity to be at all levels in some form of capacity from elementary on up. And so CTE is exciting because even though we don't have the academic classes in our buildings, our students come to us for, either the morning or they come in the afternoon. And we have some students that come and they take two CTE classes, so they come morning and afternoon. But even though the academic part is not there, academics are still going on in those CTE classrooms. We have a range of different courses, whether it's culinary arts, baking and pastry. We have automotive, diesel tech. We have barbering, cosmetology. We have horticulture. We have so many different opportunities for students where they can come in and they can get certifications that adults are getting now in those workplaces. And so they can leave high school with certifications, and if they decide that they want to go to college, they can be working in a particular area of that certification, whatever courses that they came through, whatever programs they came through, and go on to college. We have a barbering student who's in college now making money cutting hair.
Mhm.
So the opportunities for students to actually be able to go into employment once they leave high school is very lucrative for them to come through CTE. It's an exciting place to be. I think it's very exciting.
Well, I had a guest on formerly that's a CTE specialist, and he's up in New Jersey.
Okay.
And when he, because he wrote a book as well about CTE. And when I learned more about that program and how it's there, but a lot of schools are not using it. Now, I thought that was a problem because programs like that, especially for underserved and marginalized communities, it
Hmm.
definitely means, from the monetary perspective, an opportunity. What was your first thoughts when CTE was brought to your school?
So this is an actual school where it's just CTE.
Okay.
So it is. I almost forgot where I worked at because I was about to call the place where I used to teach at a CTE school back home in Conway. I taught for 1 year, and then but anyway, so um, the school that I work as an assistant principal at Hayward Career Samuel Hayward Career and Technology Center, and so this is a place where it is just CTE classes, only CTE courses. And so this place has been in existence for over 50 years now. And it is a gem that has been hidden for a long time. And there now you hear more people talking about Hayward because of the leadership under my principal, Mr. Robert C. Washington. He is bringing the spotlight to Hayward to say, hey, we are here. We have students who are ready to work. They're ready to get into internships, and this helps them, it helps their families, especially those students who are coming through. They may be first generational college students, or they may be students that their families may not be able to send them to college because they haven't tapped into some of those resources that are out there, and so they want their students to go into the workplace. Well, they can do that and start making money. We have students in some programs like cybersecurity, they could actually leave high school and start making $80,000. I was
Wow.
not making $80,000 my first year teaching. Okay, I was making, and I think I said it last year on your show. I was making $21,000 my first year teaching. Okay, that that was that was pennies, but you have programs where students are able to leave out, and it can be life changing for their families, and so there isn't enough that's talked about when it comes to CTE, and it is regional. Because one thing I will say, that as we talk more about college and career readiness, that career readiness piece, the schools, the schools in our district, high schools, they depend on our numbers. They depend on our students getting through the programs and becoming certified and becoming career ready, so that that report card looks good. And unfortunately, schools are having to be monitored by testing and report card scores. It is what it is, but they are depending on those numbers. And when students are coming through, they're coming through and they're doing well. They're doing quite well. I think we are at last count 97% career readiness so far, and I'm sure people will say otherwise if it's changed, because each and every day we're seeing where more students are finishing up certain certifications to become career ready. But there's not a lot of spotlight, and in certain areas, like there are other career centers in South Carolina, and when you look at the number of programs that they offer, Hayward offers so many more. And there's just so much that can be done at this level. There's just so much that can be done for the students, and it is a game changer for them.
Well, we got two more comments here in the chat. I'll put the first one on the screen.
Okay.
And this says a true role model and very inspiring. You go, doctor. That's from Integrity Tax Co. Tax Cools 4200.
Okay, I'm not sure who that is, but thank you so much.
And the other one here says Dr. Sarvis is one of the best I've worked with. This is from Eugene Parker 5411.
Okay, that's Mrs. Parker. She is one of our school counselors. Thank you so much. We work well together in helping the students to make sure that they get everything done that they need to get done regarding their readiness and certifications. So thank you, Ms. Parker.
Who were the people who believed in you before you fully believed in yourself?
My mom and my grandmother. I would say they were the first two, because my mom instilled in me from I think since I was in the womb that I was the firstborn. I was to take care of everyone, and she must have known something when I was in her belly, because ever since I've come out, she has told me, and she would tell me, "You are the one that needs to take care of everybody if something happens to me or when I go on." And I'm thinking to myself, that's a big responsibility to deal with everybody in this family. And and it definitely was. But they definitely knew and saw something in me, and it just took me a couple of decades to really begin to see what they saw, because I knew I was strong, I knew I was independent, I knew I was outgoing, but to know what I would be able to do, like 11-year-old me could be looking back right now and say, yeah, I knew you could do it. But along the way, there were some things that would come up that made me think I wouldn't be able to succeed, and I wouldn't be able to follow all of my dreams and meet my goals. But I finally got it together, and now as I tell people, you can't tell me anything now. You can't tell me what I can't do, because I'm going to do it.
And I got a couple of more chats here that just popped up.
Oh boy.
Put this one on the screen, and this one is from Monique something blue. I haven't worked with or for her, but she is a magnificent human being.
Thank you, Oz. Oz is one of my sisters. She is a part of my community of women that I met through LinkedIn. And so I have a small community of people who are my supporters. And so she is a part of that community. It's about 8 or 10 of us, and we support each other in our businesses. And we actually have a podcast that will be coming out very soon. And so just stay tuned for that. But thank you, Oz.
And going back to, you didn't know who Integrity Tax Cools 4200 is, Chris Javis, Integrity Tax.
Thank you. I'm trying to figure out how he got on there, but I'm sure that was my principal, Mr. Davis. Thank you. Thank you so much. He is actually a barbering, a licensed barber, master barber, and he is consulting with our barbering students now. So he's doing a phenomenal job. He comes in during the day. He also is working with them after school so that they can get all of their hours in. So he's doing an awesome job. Thank you so much.
And this one is from Ursula Bellamy.
My goodness.
Dr. Sarvis is amazing. She's truly making a difference at Hayward.
That is Miss Jones. She is our cosmetology teacher. So thank you so much, Miss Jones. Mwah. Thank you so much.
And this one's from Vanessa Marshall. Dr. Sarvis has been an amazing role model since I've started working at Hayward.
Thank you, Vanessa Marshall. Thank you. She is our intro to culinary teacher, and she is doing an awesome job with the students. Thank you so much.
And Oz just gave you a heart back.
I'm gonna see if I can do this like the young people. That my heart? Does that look like a heart?
That's close enough.
Or let me do this. Let me do like the young people. Clock it.
Mr. Javis put that on the screen. He says, "Thank you, Dr. Sarvis."
You are what's. See,
So,
I'm being good today.
so let me just do this right here. How did motherhood shape your drive, your discipline, and your purpose?
Whew, motherhood kicked my butt, and it's still kicking my butt right now. Motherhood strengthened me. Motherhood has helped me to become who I am because I was always putting my children first in anything that I was doing. And I had to remember that when I went home at night, I was looking into the eyes of my son and my daughter, and I wanted them to be proud of me. I wanted them to know that I did everything possible to help make their lives so great. And no matter what, and I'm trying not to tear up right now, but motherhood helped shape me. So even though I did not choose, or I made the choice, because of course we know there are other things you can do if you don't want to have your children, but I chose to have my children. And in having my children, I knew that I was going to do the best that I could by them. Now, they may not have always gotten what they wanted, but they got what they needed. And along the way, they would get some of those things that they wanted. But as a mom, I was always putting them first and making sure that they were okay. Because if they were not okay, then I wasn't going to be okay. And it was my responsibility. I don't talk about their father in a bad way. Now, early on, yeah, I used to slam him, and he was all the different types of names that he could be, but I had to be healed from that as well. That he made the choice not to be there, but I was choosing to be in my children's lives and to make sure that they were healthy and that they would be productive citizens. So motherhood gave me the fuel that I needed in order to continue to do well. And I even say that I think it helped to keep me out of some things, because originally I was wanting to go to UNC Chapel Hill for college. I don't know what could have happened then, because I was so green, and my mother kept me, very close to her. And even though go and have, go and do different things at school, such and being in different clubs and organizations, and I was on the track team for 3 years. So even though I was involved in things, I couldn't go over to certain people's houses, and I understand why. My best friend Keisha, she was the only person whose house I could go to, because my mom and my dad went to school with her mom, so she knew her. But my mom was not playing that. She was not playing me going somewhere and she didn't know who it was. And that was something that, as a mom, that I had that same mentality with, because I know who whose house you're going. And they really only had one or two people that I trusted for them to go over. And so motherhood shaped me. Motherhood gave me that fire in order to be resilient and to continue going for my dreams and setting goals for myself, not just for myself but also for my children, because when it came down to school they had to, I, I wasn't settling for certain grades, but I had to also keep in mind they're not me. And so even though I was the one that wanted, A's and B's, I had to understand that if my children were not on that level for certain subjects, that I had to be there to help and support them. So motherhood, whew, and I say it's still kicking my butt because my daughter, she received her kidney last year. So she's 1 year of having her kidney, and she's still kicking my butt now. She's a big baby, and I'm gonna say no. I don't think she's on here right now, but in case she watches the replay, baby, I love you, but you are a big baby, but you my big baby, okay?
I tell you, it's I just don't. Yeah, I guess I'm kind of like lost for words because I'm going to tell you, you're still displaying that resolve that basically every Black woman has to show that same resolve to be there, to pick up pieces, and to make it work.
Yep.
I am again so proud right now that you're back here on the show because it's that realness and it's that strength that you display that really is inspiring. That's inspiring. It's my opinion, I guess, but I can tell you this: you make a difference, and I'm sure you do. I know you do.
I would like to think so. I get to hear from some of my students that once they graduate, then they can become friends with me on Facebook. Now, I did have a Facebook account that when I left Loris High School, I had to create one just to keep up with the students because they were so heartbroken that I left. And some of them still talk about it. And they're in their 30s and 40s now, and they're still talking about being heartbroken. And they impacted me. And it was hard to leave, but I left to take on a principalship. And I get to see them having their own children and going through graduations and starting jobs and just flourishing, and even some of them having their own grandchildren now. So they have truly, every child that I've come across who has called me mama. Now I'm out of the mama stage, I guess. They call me auntie, so I I guess I got to be okay with that with that. But I have so many that call me their second mom, and they have touched my life as well. So I know I've made a difference in their lives. Now, some of them, if any of them should ever say that I've been violent, please don't listen to them because I am not a violent individual. Okay, just want to throw that caveat out there.
So, I want to, in just talking about education, right now, America's in a sad state right now.
Mm-hmm.
And, education is one of those targets that's actually been hit by the bullseye.
Mm-hmm.
And so with that, resourcing has always been kind of crazy, especially in all underserved and marginalized communities. But then now the whole education system is now taking this big hit.
Mm-hmm.
As we see what's happening now with that, what are some of the things that, in your school now, especially being a part of the CTE program, and that's what your school is totally. What are some of the things that you see that have improved, or what are some of the things that you feel can get better?
So, as far as what I see improving deals with the students, I see more students who look like us who are coming into those programs and that are getting certifications and that are going out in the workforce, and they're they're becoming productive citizens, and they've been able to make those the impact, economic impact in their with their families. There's still so much that needs to be done when it comes to education, whether it's K through 12 or whether it's CTE, because there are just not enough teachers. So that is an area in which there needs to be more teachers, especially here in South Carolina. I just saw a news report on Instagram, and I don't on this one about. Oh, I'm not sure what happened.
Yeah, your audio keeps going in and out.
Yeah, I didn't touch anything. Okay.
Okay.
All right. So the what I saw on Instagram was one of our local television stations that talked about the shortage of teachers, and that there would be some there was a bill that was being looked at to have teachers from other states as possibly being able to come and work in South Carolina. And so I responded to that. That's one step in helping to increase the number of teachers. But we also have to look at why teachers are leaving. So we are doing an okay job when it comes to making sure that there are different programs for teachers. We have mindfulness. We have way incentives that incentive pay that we try to give educators, bonus sign-ons to get them to come in. But we've got to go back and look at the root cause. Why are the teachers leaving? So we're doing a okay job when it comes to trying to do things better and to help educators and give them more resources to help them, even when it comes down to counseling, if they are in need of mental health counseling, or if they need counseling for other areas of their life. And we have these programs that are offered throughout many districts. But that's just a Band-Aid on the issue. We've got to get down to the root cause. Our teachers, they use the word burnt. They're burnt out. Burnt out. That is true. You can be burnt out, but even with that, it's a deeper root cause for why teachers are leaving. It's not because they're burnt out. It is because they're misaligned. They do not. There's some aspect, some area in their life, whether it's their physical life, their mental, spiritual, or emotional. One of those four areas, or sometimes it's a combination of all of them. There is a reason as to why they are feeling what they're feeling. And speaking as a leader, sometimes it's us. Sometimes we don't support our teachers enough. And if we're not supporting them, and if we are just sweeping things under the rug and putting a Band-Aid on a situation, we're losing quality teachers each and every day. And we're losing them because they are misaligned. We're not supporting them. They're not getting what they need from us in order to be successful.
So, what would be your suggestion, to change this and to make this that much better? Because I know that with there being such a wide array of situations and things that's going on in education, I mean, I know that there's got to be a lot of different things, and some of them can be very, very complex. But I just think, well, just me personally, the way I look at it is I think that education has always been what it has been, but I think like now it's like it's reached that point that it could be a breaking point, especially for those that are in underserved and marginalized communities, because it kind of looks like, break the system and don't have these kids be educated. That's kind of like how I see it.
Say that last part again.
I think it's break the system
Mm-hmm.
so these kids cannot be educated at all.
And I can see some truth in what you're saying there, because where we see the most teachers leaving are in those schools where there are more students who look like us or who come from impoverished communities. Our Black and brown students are impacted, and they're being impacted the most, because in those schools, and normally it is, those Title I schools or schools that are receiving extra funding, you have where there's a mass exodus. And again, it goes back to, if you don't have the right leaders in place, they are overwhelmed with the administration. If it's not the right mix of administrators working together, then that can have an effect and impact on the teachers that are in that building. If you don't have the right district leaders, the right superintendent, it's a trickle down effect. And so with those schools in which you have those are Black and brown students, you've got to have, you don't necessarily have to have more hands in the building. You don't have to have so many people coming in saying, oh, we need to put this program in the school. We need this. We need capturing kids' heart. We need restorative practices. Now, there's nothing wrong with those programs. Those are excellent programs. But you have to be able to sit down and see, where are our areas in which we are weakest. We can't just say it's academics. We know the struggles in academics, but go back and look at, do we have our best teachers? What can we do to get our best teachers in? And once you get them in, you've got to be able to keep them, and that means supporting them. And um, whether it's in those communities or in just any schools and school districts, period, you have got to do the work and strategically look at what's going on in your building. Do that root cause analysis and see what's going on. Because until you do that, you can't, if you don't do that work, you can't do the work that needs to be done to move students and to push them forward so that they can exceed and excel.
Definitely agree with that point that you're making there, because you know I think something else that that's underlying in what you was just stating is that you talked about the support of the teachers. Like, what is and I know that they say I know that when they talk about budgeting and things of that nature, and like
Mm-hmm.
what has to get cut. Tell me, like, I mean, like, is there a such as like in one of those budgeting meetings that they say they have to sacrifice for the better good?
Well, I can only speak for the ones that I have, as a principal, going to the superintendent, having to meet with the superintendent and to be told, okay, we're going to have to take about 2 or 3 of your teachers to place in other schools. And I was at a Title I school, and I'm like, then that's going to, leave us short, because ideally having two core teachers, two ELA, two math, two science, and two social studies for sixth, seventh, and eighth grade, that's an ideal setting, because then you can have two teams in each house, in each building, two teams of sixth graders, two teams of seventh, and two teams of eighth. But when you start taking teachers away from those teams, and from those areas, then you're down to like a team and a half, and it becomes real funky in the design. And so there are times in which principals are told they have to give up positions because the numbers say you have too many. But then when you're looking at your paper and you're looking at where your test scores are, you sometimes these are the buildings that need these teachers the most. And so in those meetings, you might be told that you're going to lose them, but in the end, you are able to speak on why you need to keep them in districts in which they allow leadership to, to be open and talk about their needs. The principals do have an opportunity to talk about what their needs are, and they are, for the most part, they are heard. But yeah, those are some difficult conversations to have, and to be told you've got to lose teachers, especially when you know that you need every single body and then some in your buildings.
So, can you tell us what inspired you to enter the field of education?
Whew. Well, so originally I wanted to be a psychologist. I wanted to have my own practice in my home, and have like the office downstairs, and I wanted to have a practice in which I worked with the youth. I wanted to work with uh, grades, really grades 6 through 12, and being able to counsel students, because when I was counseling, I had to count. This was a time when a lot of testing that was taking place. And so with that testing, that was where the focus was. And there were times in which I needed to really talk to someone other than my mom or my grandmother, and I just needed, some guidance in certain directions. But I ended up guiding myself a lot of times, even to the point of doing my own mapping out what classes I would take and so forth. And so originally I wanted to be a psychologist, have my own counseling practice. But when I was in high school, as I said, I was an in-teacher cadet. I was also a part of one of the clubs there was for future teachers. And I went to Clemson University with some of the others that were in the club, and listened to a dynamic speaker. And even to this day, I do not remember this man's name, but he was a black man, and he talked about the need for more teachers who were black. And so I listened to he was phenomenal, and I put a pin in my head, and kept that in mind about education. So when I started at Coastal, I started with psychology classes because, again, I wanted to, be a counselor. And but Coastal did not have the master's program for that. And with them not having that program, and with me having two children, I could not just afford to move and go to another location to do my master's. It was going to be a lot. So I started looking at pairing psychology with something else. And when I thought back to education, and I thought back to that speech, and I said, well, I feel like I can be that teacher in social studies that I didn't always have. I had, some teachers who were okay, and I had one or two that were just phenomenal. But I wanted to be that teacher that I didn't have, the one that did the extra work and just making sure that history came alive. And I knew how important history is, and should be for everyone. But history is also probably one of the most hated core academics. And so I paired it and double majored in secondary education and psychology, and got my certification in social studies. And it was the best thing that I ever did. I have taught everything under the sun when it comes to social studies, and I have loved all of it. And each subject I've taught has helped shape me as an educator, and has also shaped me as a thought leader as well.
So, how did your early classroom experiences shape your teaching philosophy?
I started teaching philosophy. What was that first part?
I said, how did your early classroom experiences shape your teaching philosophy?
So my early classroom experiences were definitely unique. I started my year teaching, and I was teaching a subject that did not have a book, and it was freshman focus. And so teaching Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. This was before the book came out for 7 Habits of Highly Effective Students, but that was pretty much the book that was used. And just going through each of those 7 habits, that helped to help me be better as a teacher, and beginning with the end in mind. And that was really one of the one habits that I kept and focused on in most of my teaching career, keeping the end in mind. And that goes back to going back and looking at what those goals are. Keep the goals in mind. Where whatever it is that you're trying to get to, keep that in your mind. And that was something that I also instilled in my students. You know, it's beyond just getting a high school diploma. You've got to think about what you're trying to do to cultivate yourself as a citizen, as a productive human being. And so my first year was definitely a a turning point in my teaching career, as far as, am I going to still keep doing this? And I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it, and had opportunity to teach at my alma mater. And so but that book by Stephen Covey definitely has been a part of my teaching career. And my second year teaching, that was my opportunity where I was able to teach at what's formerly Ainer Conway Career Center. Fell in love with that. I said, this is the job for me. I am not leaving this building. But then the district cut social studies after my first year being there. So myself and the other social studies teacher, Mr. Myers, we ended up having to go other places. And so that's when I began teaching at Carolina Forest, and was there for 7 years. And throughout those years, just being able to keep my goals focused, and helping my students to be focused with their goals, and talking about the importance of being a citizen, why it's important to vote, why it's important to be active in your community. That really helped shape me as a teacher. I think I cannot hear you right now.
Okay.
Okay, now I can hear you.
Okay. Just showing some of these from the chat. Uh,
Okay.
there's a yes, and then we got the muscle, and here it says it is both of you. This is from Oz, and then I have one here from I think said this is the superintendent. It says you're more than your struggles. You're living proof that dedicated teachers and administrators can change the narrative for students. Thank you for paying it forward every day.
Yes, thank you for speaking that into existence. That's Mr. Washington, the principal, but yep, he is going to be superintendent or even larger. Yes.
And there's uh, another here from Integrity. It says, "So true, Doctor. Leadership is the key, and you all have been a delight to work with and for."
Thank you.
Um, this is Oz again. She agrees with Integrity.
Thank you.
Uh, this one is Oz again. She did not know.
Yes, some of them were saying that um, the that they couldn't hear us
Mhm.
as far as some of the audio. So that's where that comment was coming from.
Okay. Um, and so okay, yes, that was that the last three comments were about that. So so can you tell us, what does an effective classroom environment truly look like?
Oh, this is, yes, I can definitely tell you that this is my baby right here. An effective classroom environment. That is what it looks like, what it sounds like, what it feels like. An effective classroom environment is one where you have the teacher or the facilitator, or as I would like to call the teacher, the CEO of his or her classroom. As the CEO, you are helping to facilitate the knowledge that is going on. You are a part of that environment. You're a part of, you're not just helping students to gain the knowledge, but you're also, as the CEO, you're learning yourself. You have where the culture in that classroom is where students are willing to ask questions, that they feel accepted, that they feel safe when they're in your room. When you have that type of environment, then you're going to hear all types of great noises coming from that room. And an effective classroom is not necessarily quiet 24/7. That idea went out with the baby in the bathwater. That idea went out a long time ago. And I had, as a leader, I had to get used to that when I went into administration, because that mindset was okay, if it's loud in the room, there's no learning taking place, and that's far from it. Especially when you're in CTE, you need to hear noises when you are in the lab setting. When you go into welding, you're going to hear you're going to hear the machines that are going. When you are in diesel, you're going to hear the engines revving in the car, and you're going to hear the all of the different tools being dropped and so forth. You're going to hear noise. You're going to hear people saying, hey, or hot, hot, if you're in culinary, baking and pastry, when you're coming around the corner with something that's hot or you're carrying a knife. So you've got to get used to hearing that environment hears what it sounds like. It may sound like chaos, but it's organized chaos, because you know exactly what's going on. You hear students talking, and you're not talking over each other, but you're talking and you're asserting your voice, and you are actively engaged in conversations. Now, are there times, is an effective classroom one in which it's quiet? Yes, you got to have time in which you're testing. But when you're talking about the instruction and you're talking about the direct instruction that may be taking place, then you're going to hear questions asked. You should hear questions coming from the students. The teachers may ask questions, but the students, you know that they're engaged when they're asking you questions that tie into the content that you're sharing at that point in time. So I'm all about effective classrooms. I know what it looks like. I know what it sounds like. I know what it feels like. And I know exactly what it does not look like as well. And for me, that's exactly what it looks like and it sounds like and feels like.
So, what are the biggest challenges educators face today?
The biggest challenges right now, number one, students are different. And some of our teachers are trying to figure out how to deal with students, especially those who are Gen Xers and if they're Gen Xers or baby boomers and they're still in the classroom. We're used to a certain type of student, and we're used to compliance. But our students we're teaching now, those that are in school, they have always known electronics. They've always known cell phones. When we were coming up, we didn't have cell phones. And so one of the challenges is for definitely Gen Xers and baby boomers, and even we have some that are a part of that silent age. We have some that are in their 80s that are still in the classroom, going strong. You've got to be flexible. So just knowing how to teach these students now who've always had technology, and being able to incorporate technology into their lessons. There's nothing worse. Well, let me tell you, I won't say worse, but it is disheartening to see an educator who's not willing to learn and to try new things. An educator who's not wanting to touch technology, wanting someone else to come in the room and do the technology work for them. that is disheartening to see, because technology is not going anywhere. Now, there's nothing wrong with old school, because I'm one. We need to get our students back to cursive writing. They need to know how to tune those fine motor skills, because they're doing this, they're doing that, and they need to be able to do their signatures, things of that nature. So there's got to be a combination of, old school education along with new school. But that is one of the things that I see, is our educators being able to adjust to students, and knowing that they've always had this technology, and you have to find a way to incorporate it into the classroom, and so that it works for both of you. And it doesn't have to be every day, but you want to be able to be apt in that. Um, some other things that I see that are struggles are also knowing educators need to make sure that they don't disregard students when they're coming in. And it goes back to that relationship piece and building rapport with students. When you see a student come in your classroom, and if that student looks like he's ready to just hurt the next thing that he or she sees, that's a red flag.
Yep.
And too many times, you have teachers that will look at that student and say, okay, well, he or she's having a bad day, I'm just going to leave him alone. And you could be the one person that can either help the student at the time, or get that student to someone like a counselor, like an administrator, someone, social worker, someone that can talk to that individual. So too many times I've heard teachers say, oh, that student's soft. No, sometimes our kids are they're coming in from households in which they have just babysat 5 kids, and they got 2 to 3 hours of sleep, and they're coming into school. We have students who are coming in who are sleeping on thin mattresses and didn't get much sleep. We have students that are coming in sometimes that are sick, and they can't stay out of school because their parents have forced them to come to school. And so they've showed up. And I've heard too many teachers say, oh, they're too soft. We went through the same things too. But again, this is a different generation of students. We have to have some compassion. Just think, if we had compassion during that time, who knows what could have happened. We grew up in a time where we had to suck some things up. We had to suck it up and keep it moving. And for some of us, that helped shape us, and it helped make us to be better. And then for others, it didn't help them. So you have to be able to see your students where they are, see what their needs are. And yes, educators are asked to be many things to many people. We wear many hats. And we know that your first job is making sure that you put out that content and making sure that you are instructing the students. But when a student comes through your door, you should be asking. And there's a teacher at our school, Miss Pollard. She is our horticulture teacher. One thing I love that I see in her classroom is that every day she asks her students, how was your weekend? Or how was your night? Did you sleep well? Because our students, they come to us every other day unless they're in those year-long programs. If in cosmetology and in barbering, they come every day. But the other programs, they come every other day. And so she asks every time I'm in that classroom. A part of her starting point for class is to ask those students, how was their night? How was their day? How was their weekend? Before she even gets into the content. And it's thing. And so we have to do more of that. We need to see where our students are when they're coming through that door. And too many times I see where we're not asking those types of questions.
Dr. Sarvis, I was going to move on to the next thing, but I have to ask you a follow-up question, because you just gave us a whole big old dose of a good medicine pill. But I want to ask you, for as far as like these kids today, with them taking cursive writing out of the schools, so it's like now the kids are not critically thinking. How do we get that back?
Oh, so I have a list of things that we need to work on, and critical thinking, that is another point. I feel like we're doing better with critical thinking compared to 10, 15 years ago. I think we're doing better. We are asking our students more questions that require them to evaluate and to make sure that they are comprehending what they are saying to us. Critical thinking, that the way to make sure we have more students who are able to critical think, we've got to, this is where that technology has to be put down at some point. So again, you can't have it every day. Or if you have, I've seen technology in the classroom every day, but it may be 5 minutes. So overuse of technology, it can kill critical thinking, in my opinion. So we've got to get our students back to asking questions. That is going to get them into that mindset of critical thinking. So whatever you're sharing with them, and it goes back to that, make sure that you have that rapport with the students. When you build that rapport, build those relationships so that they're not just coming in class and they're wasting time. Because unfortunately, we have some students that come to Hayward that they were just placed into the class by their homeschool. They don't want to be there, and they don't want to do anything with that program. They're not going to come back for the next level because they're not successful in it. But if that student who didn't want to come, if that student had built a relationship with that teacher, there might have been a little hint or hope of them grasping onto that program and grasping on to, maybe this is something I can do. And I've seen it with some of the teachers, with some of the students, that they have stayed because they've had a teacher that they were able to keep up, that teacher's keeping up with them, that teacher cared, that teacher showed that they were willing to be there for them as long as they were putting forth the effort in the class. And I think that was me. Allow me to share your screen. Okay.
So let's talk about your book, your author and creative work.
Okay.
First of all, tell us what inspired you to write My Name is Lashawnte.
Lashawnte.
Lashawnte. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm. Oh my God, that is. I'm so sorry for that, and I'd be trying so hard not to mess up because that's hard. That's horrible to mess up somebody's name.
But you know what? The funny thing is, so that the title of the book, here it is. I thought I was doing a good job to write my name phonetically.
Mm-hmm.
Until I talked to someone who teaches reading.
Mm-hmm.
And it was actually my best friend Lisa. I don't know if she's on this call. She said, well, and this is after I published the book. She said, well, that really doesn't say love, because love would be Luh phonetically. I said, no, it's not. It's Lu. And here I go. I'm Googling. I said, I know I'm right. I wasn't right. I said, you wait until I publish the entire book and to tell me that phonetic Luh. Now, I knew that somewhere in my mind, but you know what? I said, this is my creativity. So that's the funny part, is even though I thought I was doing it right, it still gets mispronounced. And it's fine, because guess what? This is life. It is a part of it, and I am good with it. There was a point in time in life where I really felt some type of way when my name wasn't pronounced correctly, and that was when I was as a kid, because I would hear the kids, they would be in the corner snickering, ooh, they said her name wrong. But now I'm a full grown woman. It's fine. It is fine.
And so what was your inspiration to write the book?
I've wanted to write about my life, and to as a motivational piece for other people, but mainly for girls who may be struggling with something in their life, and just giving them the courage to know that they can succeed in life. So I've had this in mind for, I guess, for about 20 or about 20 years now, I wanted to write a book about my life. And the first book I wrote was poetry. I wanted to always do that, but I wanted to write about my life story, and it's still going on, of course, in order to inspire others and to motivate them, just to let them know that there are, no matter what you have that comes against you, you can still succeed. So just as a way to motivate other people.
Mm. So, how did writing your story impact your healing or growth?
Well, so part of my healing has come from each chapter I wrote. I think I cried a little bit for
Mm.
each chapter, because I started thinking back to all the good times with my mom and my grandmother and my sister, who are no longer with me, but they are still with me. And so as I wrote each chapter, I would shed some tears. There were tears of joy, but there were also tears of sorrow that, there are individuals who are no longer here in my life. And I had just recently lost the last uncle on my mom's side of the family. And so that was another place of healing for me, and that happening.
Mm.
So it was definitely a healing time for me to revisit some memories and some things that I had forgotten, that I was able to add in, and just have some more time to process how each part of my life, each year, added to my journey to help me become who I am. And so when I read the book, I laugh because it's also there's also humor in it. I wanted to have that part of me. So even though there are parts that are sad, that there I want people to know that you can also laugh. That you've got to have humor in your life. You've got to be able to have joy. And a part of me having joy in my life is making sure that I stay positive, and that I can, I laugh each and every day. My coworkers, they help me with that a lot. They definitely help me a lot with that.
Well, I've got some more comments here. Um, put them on the screen. Well done, Dr. Sarvis from Dr. C.
Oh my goodness. That is Dr. China. We work together. He is our instructional coach.
This is Oz, Chief Encouragement Officer.
Oh, yeah, I love it. Oh, thank you.
Um, this is Integrity. Says great show. He says the lawn is calling. He'll see you Monday. Skittles in hand, ma'am.
Thank you. Make sure they're sour Skittles this time.
And here's Oz again. Gen X is that supposed to be for real? What is that? What is Pharaoh?
So
Well,
there's two ways to look at that, if it's for real or feral.
so I want to go back. Let's go back to your book and tell us what themes do you explore in embarking on a journey.
So to the book, the last book, right?
Hmm.
Okay, give me the question again. I was in La La Land just now. I'm sorry.
The themes do you explore?
Oh, the themes. Okay, there we go. The themes that I basically explore are uh, being resilient, being persistent, being loving, um, but also being humble, being able to express empathy. And empathy is really the core of the third book that I'm actually getting ready to publish, because too many times we see in life where we can have sympathy and we say, oh, poor baby, for, this has happened to this individual, and having that woe is, you don't want to have a woe is they attitude. But when you empathize with someone, you're trying to put yourself in that person's shoes and how they're feeling about a situation. And so that theme is definitely something that I find myself writing more about, because there's just not enough of that goes around. We see sympathy all the time, but when you're empathizing with individuals, you want to, a mother who loses her son, knowing how, you may not know how it feels, but explore what does that really feel like, and then you would know how to treat that individual, because sometimes we just don't treat people the way that we really need to treat them when they're going through, or when they are having a high moment. Sometimes we are not in a place when we're talking about positive aspects that are going on in individuals' life. We don't know how to handle that. Sometimes when a person has a lot of positive things going on, we try to make it about us. Oh, I remember when I did so and so. But this is a time for you to celebrate that individual, not put yourself on that stand at that time. So those are mainly the themes that I explore in my book.
So, how does poetry allow you to express parts of yourself that prose cannot?
So poetry has allowed me to talk about that I may not have experienced, such as in a living somewhere where I see flowers every day. Growing up in the projects, that wasn't, we had like the flower bushes, and we got those like later on. I was like in middle school, because I grew up in the projects from like 7 years old up until I got my own apartment there. And so I was there from 7 until 25, 26 when I first got my own place, a little single wide mobile home. You couldn't tell me anything when I got that single wide. But poetry allows me to write about places that I've never been, but I can, through my writing, you may think I've been there. So it gives me a chance to be very vivid in descriptions. It allows me to talk about feelings. I used to write a lot of poems about love, and when I look back at some of those poems, I'm like, my goodness, I, you know, someone that was always looking for that love that could be reciprocated the right way. And so I write about emotions, and my writing allows me to just be vivid, so that whenever you're reading it, you should be able to picture exactly what I'm saying. And it just allows me to get some things off my chest.
Well, I will say, I think that when you're doing poetry, and and I know when you kind of gave us a little bit of insight into that the last time. You know, I can kind of like see you doing poetry and how it is another form of expression for you,
Hmm.
because when again, just talking about poetry in general, people are able to make it cut off at the right time and make it like just stand out.
Hmm.
And so, just as you're talking about how it relates to you, can you tell us, is this more of where you're just like, just more of direct and pointy in the things you're trying to get across? Or is it that you're just trying to lay a foundation for people to understand what it is that you're saying?
Actually, oh, volume down again. So it's my poetry is actually a little bit of both.
Mhm.
I'm very straightforward in what I'm describing. Some of my poetry about nature are the ones that I feel like I like the best, because I described, flowers and how they're dancing in the wind and how they're wearing their pretty dresses, and so giving these using personification on these these objects and making them come to life. So I'm very descriptive with my poems about nature. And then I have poems in which I am laying a foundation and asking questions, or I am giving cues to certain situations and talking about one of the poems that I wrote that was very descriptive, but it was leaving an opening there for others to see themselves in it, was when I was going through my divorce, and I compared what I was feeling to malignant cancer. And so it was so yucky and descriptive, and the divorce itself was not bad. It wasn't that I went through a rocky divorce, but just I was never a woman that wanted to go through divorce. Like, I was totally against it. But when you don't do the things that you're supposed to do in the beginning, and when you don't love yourself and you think that this is your last opportunity to be loved by a good person, like, every good person isn't meant to be together. You it's not about good person, oh, let's get married. And as a young girl, that's what I thought. And I thought, I've got two babies, and they need a dad, but I love this person. But I didn't look at all the avenues. So anyway, that's a whole nother story. That may be a whole nother podcast right there, episode. But the poem, I talked about how it felt, and I compared it to a malignant cancer. And so it's descriptive, but it leaves that door open for others to think about their own situations, and is there something similar that they can compare in their lives, that they can compare to that. So it's a little bit of both. I do both.
So what do you hope readers feel after engaging with your work?
I'm sorry, one more time.
What do you hope readers feel after engaging with your work?
I hope that they feel my passion, and not that they necessarily have to feel what I felt when I was writing. If they are able to feel those feelings, whether it was joy, sadness, I that's always a plus. But I hope that when they're reading what I wrote, that they feel my passion. They feel who I am as a person. Because anyone can come up to you and say, "Oh, Dr. Lashawnte is like this," or if they know me well, they call me by my school nickname. I don't think I said it on the show last time what my childhood nickname was. Did I? Okay, we're gonna keep that. But but I said I was eventually, at some point on somebody's show, I'm gonna eventually reveal that name. I'm just not there yet. But if if they know me from being in school, however you know me, I don't forgot what the question was. I'm sorry. Can you?
What readers take? What do you hope your readers feel after engaging with your work?
Okay, yeah. I hope that I got off on a tangent talking about that nickname. I hope that they see the passion. They see me for who I am. That's where I was at. That they anyone can tell you that Lashawnte is like this. Lashawnte's mean, or Lashawnte's nice, or Lashawnte's helpful. But through my writings, I hope you can see who I am just from my writings. Because if you don't have an opportunity to shake my hand, give me a hug, and you don't get a chance to meet me, my writings are left behind. The writings should be able to tell you who I am as a person.
So now let's jump over to your podcast, and I want to congratulate you on that because I've seen some of your episodes. So what inspired you to launch the Road to an Effective Classroom Environment?
So I launched that in 2018, and this month, actually April 3rd of this month, made 7 years. I'm sorry, 8 years. 8 years. Year 8. 8 years since I've been doing it. But when I started it, as a hobby. I began it right after going through some training in helping teachers with classroom management. And so I went through a training called Time to Teach and fell in love with it. Like, this has also been a part of my life. When you hear me talk about relationships and rapport and making the subject matter relevant to the students, those are concepts that are embedded within Time to Teach. And so I fell in love with it, and I thought about it. I said, well, maybe I should do a podcast and talk more about this, since I wasn't getting into the schools and school districts to actually do training at the time. And so I started the podcast, and it started out very slow, because if you go back and you look at the first episode, and people, one of my friends and my sorors, she teased me about it after I dropped it that day. It's only 6 minutes, and so I set the stage for what you will hear. And so she said I sounded like I was, those after dark DJs. This do an effective. She really was ragging me. But if you look back at that first episode up until now, there's been so much growth, and have really started having guests on the show, and just loving the conversations. And the conversations are geared towards the classroom, but there are other elements other than just the classroom teacher. We talk about counselors and school district leaders, parents. There are episodes for parents as well. So it started as something I thought was only going to be a hobby, and that it was. I didn't know what direction I was going in when I began it, but it has definitely taken off within the past 2 years. I'm doing much more with it.
So what conversations do you feel are missing in education today?
I think we're not talking enough about, I don't think we are talking enough about our students and having them in the conversations. Sometimes they're not included in, well, most of the time. We're the ones, district leaders, even at the state level, and also government, they're making decisions about the students. And there's not enough conversations where we're involving our students. Now, we have schools and school districts that have SIC, which is School Improvement Council, and many times they'll have 1 or 2 students on there. Or you may have an advisory board within the district, in which it's a student advisory, in which the superintendent talks with the students and get their input. But I know that there's not enough conversations in which we talk to students about what do they want. And not that we have to have their say in everything that's going on. And it's kind of like with teachers. We know that we listen to our teachers, and we should be listening to what their needs are, but we know we can't fulfill every need, everything that every teacher wants. We have to, look at everything in perspective and line it up with the vision of the principal as well as the superintendent. But we need to talk more to our students, and we need to find out what do they want, and if they know, because sometimes they don't know what they want or they need. But I feel like there's not enough discussions about, again, going back to what we talked about in the top of the hour, why our teachers are leaving in droves, and what can we do, getting down to that root cause. We need to have more conversations, and not wait until the teacher has said they're not signing their contract to not come back. I've seen too many times in which great teachers leave the profession, and they go and they be great in other things, or teachers that leave districts because they don't feel supported. And I'm talking about quality teachers. I'm not talking about those teachers that already don't have that mindset to be there for the right reasons. And we all know, every profession, you have someone that's in it, and they're in it just for one reason. They're not there to build relationships. They're not there to, they go in their cubby holes, their silos, and they stay there and they do nothing. You see that not only in education, but in every profession that there is. I'm not talking about those individuals, but those individuals who are outstanding, that are quality, that have potential. Why are they not returning? And we need to have conversations with them before they leave.
Wow. So, how do you choose the topics or guests for your podcast?
That's a great question. So many times my topics will come from things that are currently going on, or whether it's going on nationally or going on within South Carolina where I am. And then there are times in which I can be watching a program on television, which I don't watch too much TV now because I'm so much into some other things. I'll come home now and just be in quiet, just complete quiet. And I'll think of something that goes back to something I read in a book or in an educational journal, and I will develop the topic from there. And when I come up with the topics, I will go ahead and write them out, script them out, and get them going, especially the ones that I actually do. Now, as far as my guests, I started having guests really this past year. I revved it up and began getting guests to come on the show. I had only one guest in 8 years, and that was Dr. Ann Taylor. And we went to a Starbucks. She met me. She was a director in Aiken County, and so we met in Columbia. Because at the time, I don't think I was living in. Yes, I was. I was living in Columbia. So at the time, I just moved to Columbia, and we met at a Starbucks. And so we recorded outside. So if you listen to that 2-part episode, you can hear the wind whipping. I had the little lapel microphone, and I was just like, oh God, I'm not doing this ever again in interviewing anyone, because that was really the true beginnings. I think it was like 2018 or 2019 when I did her interview. And so I recently reached out to her and told her I want to have you back on. I've got my act together. Things are better. But the guests that I have on, I have people that reach out to me, and they email me, whether it's their assistant. They'll say this person would be great for the show, and so I do a pre-interview with them before scheduling anything, because I like to have people who match up with my my ideas and my philosophies when it comes to education. And so that's how I go about it. And so when they reach out, I'll schedule that pre-interview, and then they come on. There are some people who I've actually asked. My principal, Mr. Washington, he's been on. He talked about CTE during February of this year, because February is CTE month. And I've had women on for March for Women's History Month. And so now this is April, Poetry Month, and some other things that are going on. So, I try to evolve my topics around some different things that are going on for the months. But many times the topics are coming to me just from some of the things that I'm reading, and I'm expounding on and giving my opinion.
So, what has been your most impactful episode so far?
Ooh, that's a good one. I think the one that I just recently did, which was "You're Not Burnt Out, You're Misaligned," that has really spoken volumes to me, because it really answered a question that I had some years ago, and I started putting some things in place so that I wasn't getting to the place where I felt exhausted and that I couldn't keep going on. I tell every principal I've been with, I said, I've quit my job probably about once or twice a week in my head and probably out loud, and said, I'm not coming back. Y'all figure it out, because I'm done. And, sometimes it's playful, but then, you have your hard days. And I know 3 years ago, I had some hard days for 7 weeks, every day for 7 weeks. And I said, you know what? Retirement's looking pretty good right now. I think 28 is going to be the magic number. But again, I had to find out, where was I misaligned? What was going on? And I was allowing people to rob me of my joy. And I had to get to a place where I couldn't allow that to happen, because if I did, I would not still be at Hayward. I would have left the first year. And it's not just Hayward, it's everywhere. As a classroom teacher, as an administrator, as a counselor, no matter what you do in education, there is always going to be something, someone, some event that can pull you from your calling. But when you know you have been called, you cannot be deterred, you cannot be moved. You're still going to show up. And sometimes you will get those signs. Every time I say I'm not coming back, there is a child that comes to me. Every single time there is a child or an adult that needs my help in some way, shape, or form. And so I continue on, and I continue on with grace. But that's it. That's how the topics come about. But when you know your calling, know your calling.
So, how do you hope your podcast influences educators and leaders?
My goal is, it's a free resource. And I tell individuals, and I tell folks when I put it out there, this is free information. And even if you don't agree, you have another perspective on a situation. And my hope is that everyone receives the information and that they're able to apply it, because this is information you can apply the next day if you're in the classroom, or if you're working in the school district in the office, or if you're a parent. These are things that you can apply right now, free. And there's nothing like a good free resource. And this is more than just a good free resource. This is a great resource. A great resource. And I don't put anything out that I don't believe, or I don't put anything out that I'm not able to support another school or another leader or another teacher with. These are things that I believe in. These are topics that I am able to help facilitate if someone needed help in their buildings or in their districts. And so my hope and my prayer is that when you're listening to this information, even if it is that first episode, or those first 2 years, that you're taking that information and you're able to put it into practice, and that you find it to be helpful or relevant. So if anyone hears, if you've ever listened to an episode, please do me a favor and go to Apple. Go to Spotify, go to Apple Podcasts, and leave a review, and let me know what you think about it.
Final question for you. What do you believe makes a powerful education conversation?
Okay, say that one more time.
What do you believe makes a powerful educational conversation?
One that involves a little controversy. It's that conversation that people don't always want to have. The conversations that may make you feel a little uncomfortable. So anything that is about our students and how our students can be successful from us making changes in the things that we do, whether it's in the classroom or outside of the classroom. But those conversations that help us to be reflective, those are some of the most powerful conversations. Anytime that you're able to reflect on the habits, your habits, what you're doing, what you're saying, and reflecting on how that has an impact on what your students are able to do, those are going to be powerful conversations.
So, in closing, what are some words of wisdom and encouragement that you'd like to leave for our audience? How they can follow you via your social media, how they can connect with you via your website to purchase your book or to read, whatever have you?
So some words of wisdom that I would leave with you all is find your purpose. And finding your purpose, Keep that purpose in perspective in everything that you do. Define who you are each and every day. And in defining yourself, that means reflecting. Reflect on who you are as an individual, whether in office, out of office, at home. Define who you are. Stay true to yourself, but always keep that purpose in perspective. And you can find me on my company is Lee James Consulting LLC. And so that website is leejamesconsultingllc.com. My author my author page is drlashawnte.org, and that's Lashawnte, Lashawnte. I am also on Facebook. I have a business page there, which is under my name, Classy Sassy Consultant. And I also am on TikTok under Susie Q. That's a whole nother story in itself. But anyway, I'm under it's not a bad story, but I'm under Susie Q on TikTok. And I'm going to continue to call it Twitter and not the other word. So I am on Twitter under Lashawnte S. I'm also on LinkedIn. And I think I'm just about on everything now. I'm trying to get on Substack. I think I have a Substack account, but haven't really put anything on there. And you can, on my author page, the drlashawnte.org, you can go there to actually purchase the book. Third book hopefully will be out in the summer. I'm still working on that piece of it. The book is done. I just gotta, get it to the right company. And let's see, I think that is it. And my podcast, The Road to an Effective Classroom Environment, is on several platforms. My main platform is Buzzsprout, but you can find it on several platforms. And also, if you Google my name, you will find, you can see one of my master classes. I was on the Top 100 Most Powerful Black Women Summit a couple of weeks ago, and my master class was Discovering You, Unlocking Your Potential Through Intentional Coaching. So that is also absolutely free. If you Google my name, you'll find that and be able to look at that master class. And I think that's pretty much it. There's so much stuff that I'm doing.
Well, again, I'm happy to have you back. And before I do my closing monologue, I just want to tell you how much I appreciate you for coming back and again sharing all of this powerful information to help us all to become more and more informed as to not just how to get involved, but how to make things, especially from the educational perspective, that much better.
Thank you.
For all of you that are watching on all of our channels, including our YouTube channels, if you have not yet subscribed and enabled all notifications to get the show live, as well as go back and watch all of our previous recorded shows, I would appreciate it if you could support us by subscribing to our channel, enabling the notifications, and getting all of the posts that take place, as well as this content, because as time goes around, as time evolves, the content is going to be more and more, and it's going to be greater and that much more diverse. So we would appreciate your support. In this closing monologue, I'd like to say this. Tonight's conversation reminds us that leadership is not a title. It is a calling. Dr. Lashawnte McCray-Sarvis embodies what it means to rise, to serve, and to transform every space she enters. Her journey is proof that purpose can be born from adversity, that brilliance can emerge from struggle, and that when a Black woman decides to lead, entire systems shift. Her work as an educator, consultant, author, coach, and podcaster continues the legacy of women like Madam C.J. Walker, women who build, who empower, who elevate, and who leave the world better than they found it. Dr. McCray-Sarvis, thank you for your voice, your vision, and your unwavering commitment to communities you serve. And to our viewers, thank you for joining us for another episode of America in Black and White. Until next time, stay informed, stay inspired, and stay committed to the work of truth and transformation. As I close this off, can you stay for a few minutes?